Welcome to another episode on Wettie TV. Today's dive is a real special one and certainly a highlight of the year so far. We had some amazing encounters on this dive and I think you'll really enjoy the footage. We started the day on a nice sheltered part of the island just to warm up and try and get a few reef fish. The visibility was pretty good, especially for the first 10 to 15 metres, which made for pleasant diving. As per usual, we worked ourselves into a current up to a point. We most likely were going to find fish congregating. There was quite a bit of swell and surge, so it was quite difficult to hunt right up in the shallows. With this steep wall here, I'm going to try and work my way down slowly just in case there might be some nice fish parked up under all these demoiselles. When I can, I try and avoid just racing straight to the bottom as you don't know what you might see on the way down. And a good slow calm approach is more likely to attract fish around you. You can see once I get down towards the bottom here, when we get to around 20 meters, the visibility does drop a little bit and it gets a little bit more gloomy looking and a little bit more green. But this certainly can assist to hunting fish, as they're more likely to come closer to me. I did originally see some snapper when I first got to this point, so I'm trying to be patient and see if I can entice them in. Using this kelp as cover, a couple of snappers start moving in and I can see them in the distance. I sink my face into the kelp as most fish don't like seeing your eyes, so if you're trying to entice a fish in, try and hide your eyes. But I make a common mistake. I get tangled up in the weed and I really just ruin my approach and spook the fish before getting into range. A few more dives in the shallows and I don't really yield anything. It's quite difficult with the surge, so we head out deeper where the weed meets the sand. It's absolutely magic on the bottom here. Even though a little bit shallower, it started to get dirty at about 15 or 20 meters. Once you punch through that out deeper, it got beautiful and clear on the bottom. Lots of fish around and it's a lot to take in to try and figure out what species are in field of view and within range. These are really good looking boulders on the bottom here and great area for fish to hang out. It doesn't really make it easy when the demoiselles surround you and it makes it really difficult to see through them. Before heading up, decided to shoot one of these pink maumau. But something really frustrating happens. A good shot, but it goes straight into the rock behind it and the spear tip gets stuck. And this means with my reel gun, I have to peel all that reel line off my reel to get back to the surface. This can be a downside of using a reel on your spear gun. As with the float line, this would be a lot more simple and easier to manage. I'm notifying Sophie on the situation so she's able to hold on to my reel gun while I make another dive to the bottom to try free the spear. In situations like this, when there's current running, I make a dive up ahead of where it looks like the reel line is, as I know it's going to be on a bit of an angle. And it's so important to be safe in this situation. This is where you can get yourself in trouble if the spear's really stuck in the rock. But amazingly, it's barely stuck and falls straight out. Just needed the right angle to pull from. A perfect result, because at those depths, exerting too much energy trying to pull a spear or a fish out can be dangerous. It's good to learn from my mistakes, and I'll be mindful the next fish I shoot to make sure that I have a clear background behind the fish so the spear doesn't get stuck. I'm just checking where Sophie is to make sure she's alright. I'm going to make another dive as I could see some snapper on my previous dive. And here's a great example why in a lot of our videos we stress to be slow on your descent and always look around, because you can shoot fish before you get to the bottom. The snapper were pretty active swimming around with all the bait fish, so I slow my approach to try and get one before I get to the bottom. And then something quite bizarre happens, especially for the upper North Island here. A big seal comes rocketing in to chase the snapper and try and eat it. Gave me a hell of a fright in this situation, and every time it tried to get close to the snapper I would try to pull it out of its mouth so it didn't steal it. Not necessarily what you're expecting at about 24 meters. The seal was obviously really hungry because it hung around for ages trying to steal my fish. It certainly wasn't shy and is obviously used to divers. It's not only sharks you have to worry about stealing your fish and why we have a float boat, but seals and stingrays can be just as bad. Happy with that spot, we moved on, and the next spot we got into, the visibility was absolutely amazing. And straight away I spotted a nice snapper from the surface that wasn't particularly clever. I made a dive on it trying to stay nice and above it and intercept it for a half decent shot. As you can see from the surface, we're probably in about 15 or 16 meters of water. You can clearly see the bottom. It's really, really beautiful. Again, the importance of trying to shoot fish on the way down. With the excitement, we head out wide and we find big schools of big koheru. And I'm going to grab one of them and see if we can attract something else to come in. When shooting small targets like koheru, try and give them lead. You see here I'm anticipating which one I'm going to shoot. Tracking your gun too much will often result in you missing and agitating the fish. Instantly you see kingfish turn up underneath the school. Sophie was in the market for a kingfish today, so I whacked it on the end of my spear, and you'll see me diving above her trying to spin it around to see if I can attract the kingfish to come closer. They were being a little bit nervous, but you could see that they were pretty enticed by the koharu. Sophie's patient and she puts a great shot straight head on the kingfish. With her 100 centimeter spear gun, she easily punches all the way through its head. It's a very good secure shot and the fish does seem to be wounded, but everything doesn't always go smoothly. A kingfish of this size, even though it looks hurt, if you don't give it enough time to wear itself out, it could have plenty of energy and get yourself in trouble. It's partially my fault as I've got the float line in the way, but you see Sophie tries to pull on the kingfish maybe a little bit too early, and it starts spinning around her, tangling the float line. Ideally, when finding a big fish, you want to try and lie flat on the surface as it'll help avoid getting in these situations. But we did our best not to panic. Fortunately, we have each other to help out. Get those lines away from the weight belt as that's the most important thing. With the reel gun, it does add that extra dimension of difficulty with big fish. With a float and float line, it's very easy to let it go and hold on to a nice thick rope. But with the reel gun, she's not able to let go of her gun. You'll see she does a great approach. She gets her legs around its tail and handed its gills to try and subdue the fish. I grab it off her just to bleed so she can sort out the rest of the line. It's a really nice fish and probably the sort of low 20 kilo mark. And after this, all hell broke loose. Down deep I could see a big school of kingfish, so I made a dive to try and get them to come up. An awesome sight for spearos out there, we always love to see this. A really nice big school of kingfish coming from the depths. It was amazing with the school of kingfish as it appeared out of nowhere, and there were some really nice big ones in it. But of course we had already shot a kingfish earlier, so we had more than enough meat. You can see that nice big one in the middle of the school there. A really good fish, especially for Auckland. And when I'm pointing at that one, another big one shows up, presenting a really good shot, but no need to spare this one. Then things got really exciting. It turns out it was feeding time for this big school of kingfish. Sophie shot a koharu and she didn't even manage to get it up to her before the kingfish smashed it off the end of her spear. Not a real uncommon sight, but they certainly got really friendly throughout the day. I gave the camera to Sophie and a big school of koharu was just sort of circling around us. It was amazing. The koharu tended to hang around us and the kingfish was sort of rounding them up, stopping them from leaving the area. As soon as I shot one, they came in like a pack of hungry sharks. And they nearly crashed into us. I was able to hold on to the spear and feed them and wrestle them as they came in to grab it. They did not seem to be timid at all. And the force they were hitting the koharu with was really, really impressive. At times I had to remind myself they didn't have big teeth and they couldn't bite me. The kingfish were quick learners and they realised us spearing the koharu made for an easy meal. And that poor school of koharu was sort of rounded up, hanging around underneath us. The more we did this, the more and more friendly the kingfish got. We were able to do this for about 20 minutes before the koharu managed to figure out that it wasn't a good area to be. Had to quickly pull in the spear before they grab it. The longer we did it, the more and more bold the fish got, and the bigger the fish got that would come up and try and have a go at it. As it turns out, this was a lot more enjoyable than shooting one. A nice fish grabs it in the end here. As I go searching for more koharu, it turns out that the kingfish are not the only thing that's stalking us now. Sophie has a quick look behind her and realises there's a couple of bronze whalers following her. It's really interesting watching their behaviour, as we didn't see them earlier on, but as soon as I made a big enough distance away from Sophie, they were friendly enough to come in close. Unfortunately, she's missing nice footage of me wrestling kingfish again. And you watch the sharks here as they take off because they start swimming over to try and chase them away. They certainly don't like having to deal with more than one person. And the kingfish were still there waiting for another meal. So, what was just happening?
We just had kingfish just going crazy on the surface trying to get our koharu, so it was amazing. They're literally right up here, attacking the spear, getting the koha's off, just in big frenzies.
It was wild, eh? Then did two sharks turn up?
Yeah. As soon as Jackson was a little bit further away from me, they came in to have a look, so pretty exciting stuff.
And the snapper too, there's snapper everywhere as well, isn't there? Unfortunately, after this, the GoPro ran out of footage, which is, I know, a cliche thing to say. So we started swimming back to the boat, and the poor old kingfish were following us back, hoping that we were going to shoot a few more fish for them. It topped off an absolutely incredible day. And these are the sort of dives that you really do remember.